Lyra had grown up in the shadows of the mining colony on the fringe of human-settled space. The colony was a place where hope rarely found a home, where the dust-streaked streets were crowded with people who had learned to survive but not to live. Every day was a battle against hunger, fatigue, and the ever-present threat of the corporate mercenaries who came to enforce their claims on the meager resources of the outer colonies. Lyra had nothing, no family, no possessions, not even the comfort of friendship. She moved through life like a ghost, always careful not to be seen, always careful to take only what she needed to survive. The colony itself was a jagged collection of metal structures, half finished and half abandoned, surrounded by the barren rocks and craters of the planet's surface. Dust storms swept through the streets at irregular intervals, carrying with them the scent of burnt fuel and the metallic tang of iron from the mining shafts. Lyra had learned to recognize the signs of the storms early and found shelter in whatever ruin offered protection, whether it was an empty storage container or the shell of a fallen transport ship. Today, she was hunting for supplies in one such derelict ship, a vessel long abandoned after a failed mining expedition. The interior of the ship was dark, the walls coated with a thin layer of grime and corrosion. Her small flashlight flickered across broken consoles and scattered tools. Every corner was a potential hiding place for danger, whether it came in the form of rival scavengers or malfunctioning systems. Lyra had been through enough encounters to know that caution was more valuable than courage. Yet despite the fear, she felt the faint thrill of possibility. Sometimes these abandoned ships held things worth far more than their weight in scrap, old data drives, energy cells, or even alien artifacts left behind by explorers who had vanished into the depths of space. As she picked her way through the narrow corridor, her attention was caught by movement ahead. She froze, heart pounding. From the shadows emerged a figure unlike any she had seen in the colony before. Tall, with the worn but careful clothing of someone who had traveled beyond the outer rings, the man carried a pack and a small device in his hands, scanning the environment with a careful precision. His eyes were sharp, alert, but not hostile. Lyra's instinct told her to hide, yet something about the man made her hesitate. He spoke before she could make a decision. "I don't mean any harm," he said calmly, his voice echoing slightly in the metal corridor. "I'm just looking for something." But this stranger did not have the posture of someone preparing for a fight. There was a gentleness to the way he moved, a patience in his tone that was rare in these outer worlds. She stepped out from behind the wall slowly, keeping her hands empty to show she was unarmed. "I'm Lyra," she said cautiously. "Who are you?" "I'm exploring the ruins nearby, trying to find remnants of the past. Nothing dangerous, I promise." He smiled, a small, reassuring gesture. "It looks like you could use a meal. Are you hungry?" Hunger was a constant companion gnawing at her, and she had long learned that asking for help brought more trouble than relief. But there was a sincerity in Cale's eyes she could not ignore. Hesitantly, she nodded. Cale reached into his pack and pulled out a small container of food, simple but nourishing. Lyra hesitated, then took it. The warmth of the meal and the unfamiliar taste of something fresh made her eyes water. She had not eaten properly in days, relying on scraps and whatever she could find in the dust. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, suspicion and wonder mingling in her voice. Cale shrugged lightly. "Because sometimes, helping someone who has nothing is the most human thing we can do." He did not offer more explanation, but the simplicity of his answer struck Lyra in a way she had never experienced. It was a kindness without expectation, a generosity that seemed almost alien in a world so hardened by survival. As she ate, Cale's eyes scanned the ship. He seemed fascinated by the remnants of technology, by the scattered pieces of machinery and consoles that had been abandoned for years. Lyra watched him, curious despite herself. There was something magnetic about his presence, a quiet confidence that did not demand attention but invited it. After finishing her meal, she set the empty container aside. "I should go," she said, though she was reluctant to leave. "I can't stay here." Strange symbols etched its surface glowed faintly, pulsing with an energy she could feel even from a distance. "I can't take that," she said immediately. "I have nothing to offer in return. I can't." "You might find it changes more than your situation. It might change your destiny." Alone, Lyra felt the weight of the device and the gravity of the moment. She had nothing to her name, yet in her hands was something that could alter her life. Fear and excitement warred within her. She could sell it, perhaps, for supplies and safety, but a deeper part of her told her there was more to it than mere survival. The device seemed to hum with potential, as if it recognized her. Over the next few days, Lyra kept the device close. She experimented carefully, discovering that it responded to her touch in ways that defied logic. It could interface with the colony's old technology, power lights, open sealed doors, and even manipulate small amounts of energy. The sensation was unlike anything she had experienced, a mixture of warmth, light, and a strange understanding she could not fully describe. Rumors began to spread through the colony. People whispered about a scavenger girl who had found a device from the stars. Word traveled fast in a place where hope was scarce, and soon Lyra realized she was being watched. Shadowy figures appeared at the edges of her vision, observing her movements with interest, their intentions unclear but certainly not friendly. The device had drawn attention, and not the kind she could ignore. One night, as she hid in the wreckage of an old transport vehicle, the danger became immediate. A group of mercenaries had tracked her, intent on taking the device by force. They were armed, heavily equipped, and confident that a lone girl with no resources would be an easy target. Lyra's heart raced, but she felt no panic. The device pulsed in her hand, as if sensing the threat. She pressed her palm against it, and a surge of energy radiated outward, knocking the attackers back just enough to give her a chance to flee. For the first time, she realized the truth in Kale's words. The device was not just a tool, it was a key, a catalyst that could unlock something greater. But it was also dangerous, a beacon that could draw unwanted attention. Survival was no longer just about food or shelter, it was about understanding and mastering the power she had been given. Over the next several days, Lyra honed her understanding. She experimented with small functions of the device, learning how to manipulate energy fields to create barriers, open locks, and interface with ancient machines scattered throughout the colony. Each success gave her confidence, each failure taught her patience. She began to see a pattern, a way that the device connected to something larger, something beyond the colony, beyond the desolate planet, perhaps even beyond human understanding. Despite the excitement, loneliness remained. Lyra had never known companionship, and even now her only interactions were with those who sought to exploit her. She thought often of Kale, wondering why he had chosen to trust her to give her the device. His generosity was a memory she clung to, a reminder that humans could be more than survivors, they could be catalysts of change. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the twin moons cast long shadows over the barren landscape, Lyra made a decision. She would not hide or run forever. She would learn to control the device, understand its purpose, and use it to shape her own destiny. If humans had built civilizations on distant planets with ingenuity and perseverance, surely one girl with nothing to her name could rise to meet the challenge before her. The night air was cold and dry, and the colony slept fitfully under the watchful eyes of mercenaries and officials. Lyra climbed to the highest point she could find, an old observation platform overlooking the expanse of the barren plains. She held the device before her, feeling the hum of energy resonate with her heartbeat. The stars stretched endlessly above, and for the first time in her life, she felt a sense of connection, of possibility. "I have nothing," she whispered to the night, "but maybe that's enough." From the shadows, eyes watched her silently, curious, calculating, and dangerous. Lyra did not yet know who they were, nor what challenges they would bring, but she felt ready. She had nothing to lose, and now, with the device in her hands and the memory of human generosity in her heart, she had the chance to become something more. The night stretched on, and Lyra remained on the platform, studying the stars and dreaming of possibilities. She imagined a future where humans were not just survivors, but creators, innovators, and heroes in a vast and mysterious universe. Her journey had begun with a single act of kindness from a stranger, a human who had given without expecting, and in doing so, had set her on a path she could never have imagined. And so, with nothing to her name but the clothes on her back and the device in her hands, Lyra took her first true step toward a destiny that would test her courage, her ingenuity, and her humanity. The days after Lyra discovered the device were filled with a mixture of fear, excitement, and curiosity. The device pulsed faintly in her hands, responding to her touch as if it were alive. She had barely slept, spending long hours experimenting with its strange abilities. She discovered that she could manipulate small amounts of energy, power dormant machines, and even communicate with simple systems through it. Each success gave her a thrill she had never felt before, and yet with each use she sensed the pull of danger, a warning that others were watching. The colony had grown restless. Rumors of Lyra's find spread quickly among the scavengers, miners, and wandering mercenaries. Some believed she had uncovered an alien artifact capable of granting power beyond imagination. Others thought she had merely stumbled upon a sophisticated piece of old technology. Either way, the whispers made her life more dangerous. She could feel eyes on her wherever she went, in the streets, in the abandoned corridors, and sometimes even through the walls of her temporary shelter. One evening, Lyra ventured further than usual, testing the device in the remains of a collapsed storage facility. She pressed her palm to its surface, and a beam of light shot out, scanning the ruined structures. Dust and debris floated in the beam as if alive. Then, to her amazement, a section of the wall shimmered and became translucent, revealing a hidden room filled with machinery she could not recognize. Her heart raced. This was more than she had ever imagined. The device was opening doors not just in the physical world, but in knowledge itself. Inside the hidden room, Lyra found consoles covered in alien symbols. She traced her fingers over them, and the device responded, projecting holographic information in the air before her eyes. It was as if the technology recognized her touch and allowed her access. She saw schematics for machines she could not comprehend, maps of star systems, and instructions for energy manipulation far beyond anything humanity had achieved. Her mind reeled. She had nothing in the world, yet now she held the key to secrets that could change entire civilizations. But excitement came with risk. As she absorbed the information, she heard a sound behind her, a soft, deliberate step. She spun around and saw three figures emerging from the shadows, their weapons drawn, mercenaries, the type that belonged to corporations or warlords who would kill for anything of value. Lyra froze, but the device pulsed in her hand as if sensing the threat. Without thinking, she extended her palm, and a field of shimmering energy expanded outward, knocking the attackers back. They stumbled, surprised and enraged, but not incapacitated. Lyra did not wait to see their next move. She darted through the hidden exit revealed by the device and sprinted into the night, her heart pounding in her chest. The colony was quiet, but she knew that shadows moved and watched, that danger was always close. For the next several days, Lyra moved constantly, never staying in one place too long. She explored abandoned outposts, testing the limits of the device. She discovered she could interface with old mining machinery, activating dormant drones to carry supplies or create defensive barriers. She could generate light and energy to scare off intruders or signal allies. The more she experimented, the more she realized the device responded not just to touch, but to intent. The purity of her thoughts, her desire to survive without harming others, seemed to strengthen its power. Despite the thrill, Lyra struggled with loneliness. She had no one to share her discoveries with, no one to teach her the lessons she had to learn alone. In the solitude of ruined corridors and empty chambers, she spoke aloud, narrating her experiments, reasoning through each discovery. Her voice echoed back to her, a small comfort in the vast emptiness of the abandoned structures. She began to think about Kale, the human who had given her the device. Why him? Why her? She did not know, but she understood that the act of generosity had given her a second chance at life, a spark she could not ignore. Then one night the danger escalated. A group of mercenaries, larger and more organized than before, cornered her near the edge of a cliff overlooking the mining fields. They moved with precision, as if they had studied her patterns and anticipated her every action. Lyra felt the weight of fear pressing down on her chest, but she did not panic. She held the device tightly and focused, allowing it to guide her actions. A surge of energy emanated from the device, and she leapt into the air, the field surrounding her creating a cushion that absorbed the impact. Rocks and debris moved under her control, forming a barrier between her and the attackers. They fired their weapons, but the energy field deflected the shots. Lyra's heart raced, and she realized the device could do more than she had imagined. It could protect her, amplify her abilities, and respond to her will. After the attackers retreated, bruised and frustrated, Lyra collapsed on the ground, exhausted. She realized that while the device gave her power, it did not make her invincible. Strategy, intelligence, and courage were still required. She needed to learn more, not just about the device, but about the universe it connected to. The artifact was a key, yes, but a key to what? She did not yet know, but she was determined to find out. Over the following weeks, Lyra ventured further, leaving the safety of the colony behind. She explored abandoned alien outposts, machines of incredible design scattered across barren moons. Each discovery revealed more about the device and its capabilities. It could interface with alien technology, manipulate energy fields, and even project maps and information in 3 dimensions. Lyra began to see patterns, a network that spanned multiple planets. She understood that the artifact was part of a larger system, a network of alien devices that could alter technology, power systems, and perhaps even influence the minds of those who interacted with it. Her reputation grew. Stories spread of the scavenger girl who could control energy and manipulate technology in ways no one else could. Some came seeking her, hoping to gain favor or trade for information. Others, more dangerous, came to take the device by force. Lyra had to be careful, not just with her surroundings, but with whom she trusted. She learned quickly that humans could be as dangerous as aliens, motivated by greed, fear, or ambition. Despite the constant threat, Lyra also encountered kindness. On a distant moon, she found a small community of humans and aliens working together to survive after a failed mining expedition. They were wary of her at first, but her courage and ingenuity earned their trust. Lyra shared knowledge she had gained, repairing machines, generating energy for the community, and teaching them to use simple techniques to survive harsh conditions. In return, they offered her food, shelter, and companionship, the first real connection she had known in years. Through these interactions, Lyra realized a truth she had always suspected. Humans had a resilience, a creativity, and an empathy that others often overlooked. Her ability to think, adapt, and inspire loyalty in others was as much a part of her power as the device itself. She began to understand that while technology could amplify her abilities, it was her humanity, the choices she made, the risks she took to help others, that truly defined her strength. One day, while exploring an ancient alien ruin on a moon orbiting a distant gas giant, Lyra discovered a chamber filled with dormant machines, their purpose unclear but clearly part of the larger network. The device pulsed strongly in her hand, responding to the presence of the machinery. As she activated it, holographic symbols filled the room, projecting a complex map of star systems, energy flows, and nodes of power across multiple planets. The scale of the network was staggering. Lyra realized that she was not just holding a tool of survival. She had become the steward of something far greater, something that could influence civilizations and reshape worlds. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden alarm, a warning of intruders. A coalition of mercenaries and rogue explorers had traced her movements to the moon. They intended to seize the network, believing it could grant them control over the region. Lyra's heart raced, but she did not falter. She had learned too much, experienced too much, and gained allies she could trust. She activated the device, generating barriers, projecting holographic decoys, and guiding her companions to defend the chambers. The battle was intense. Lyra used every skill she had learned, combining human ingenuity with the alien technology at her fingertips. She orchestrated the defense with precision, predicting enemy movements, exploiting weaknesses, and keeping her allies safe. The invaders were strong, but they lacked the adaptability, empathy, and creative thinking that Lyra possessed. Time and again they were outmaneuvered, confused by strategies they could not anticipate. By the end of the confrontation, the intruders retreated, defeated not by brute force, but by the cleverness and resourcefulness of a single human girl. Lyra collapsed in exhaustion, the device still glowing faintly in her hand. She realized that her journey had changed her. She was no longer the girl with nothing, struggling to survive in a harsh colony. She had become a force to be reckoned with, a human who could shape outcomes, inspire loyalty, and harness power through courage and intelligence. As the dust settled, Lyra stood among her companions, watching the stars above. The network she had uncovered was vast and mysterious, its full potential still unknown. She understood that the path ahead would be filled with challenges, mercenaries, rival explorers, and alien powers who might seek to claim the technology for themselves. But she also understood that humans, through creativity, resilience, and generosity, could overcome even the most formidable obstacles. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt a sense of purpose. She had started with nothing, but she had gained knowledge, allies, and a power that reflected not just technology, but her humanity. The generosity of Kale, the stranger who had believed in her when she had nothing, had set this all in motion. Every action she took now, every choice, was guided by the memory of that simple act of kindness. She looked to the horizon, the twin moons casting pale light over the barren landscape, and whispered a promise to herself. She would not squander this chance. She would learn, grow, and protect the network. She would prove that humans, though small and fragile in the vast universe, could shape destinies through courage, ingenuity, and compassion. Lyra's transformation was underway. The girl who had once survived by scavenging scraps and hiding in the shadows was now becoming a leader, a strategist, and a guardian. She had seen the potential of human creativity and generosity firsthand, and she knew that her journey was only beginning. The universe was vast, filled with mysteries and dangers, but she was ready. She had nothing to her name, and yet she held everything that mattered: knowledge, power, and the indomitable spirit of a human determined to rise above any challenge. The stars above seemed to acknowledge her determination, twinkling like distant beacons of possibility. Lyra smiled faintly, feeling the pulse of the device in her hands, the pulse of potential waiting to be unlocked. She knew that the road ahead would test her in ways she could not yet imagine, but she was no longer afraid. The power of the device was important, yes, but even more important was the power of the human spirit that wielded it. And so, with the night stretching endlessly before her and the pulse of the alien device echoing her heartbeat, Lyra took her first steps toward a destiny that would challenge the limits of her courage, ingenuity, and humanity. She was no longer just surviving. She was beginning to live, to shape the universe in her own image, and to prove that even those with nothing could become something extraordinary. The universe was vast, and its mysteries stretched farther than Lyra had ever imagined. She had traveled from the desolate mining colony on the outer rim to distant moons filled with ancient alien machinery. She had learned to harness the power of the device Kale had given her and to trust her own ingenuity. But now, she faced a challenge unlike any before. A coalition of alien powers had discovered the network of devices and sought to control it for conquest. Their fleets moved silently through space, their ships bristling with weapons and energy shields. Lyra watched them from the observation deck of a small orbital station, feeling the weight of responsibility press down on her shoulders. Her companions, humans and aliens alike, gathered around her, waiting for her direction. They had come to trust her not only for her abilities with the device, but for her courage and her wisdom. She felt their eyes on her, full of hope and fear, and she realized that her journey had never been hers alone. The lives of countless beings depended on her choices. Lyra held the device in her hands, feeling its pulse echo her heartbeat. It had become more than a tool. It was an extension of herself, responding to her intent and amplifying her abilities. She could sense the vast network stretching across systems, nodes of energy connecting worlds and civilizations. And she understood that the alien coalition wanted not just control, but domination. If they succeeded, entire planets would fall under their rule. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. Humans were not the strongest or the fastest in the universe. But they had something many others lacked: creativity, resilience, and the ability to act with empathy and understanding. Lyra knew that brute force alone would not win this battle. She had to outthink them, to use every advantage the device and her mind could provide. The first wave of the coalition's ships entered orbit around the station. They were massive, their surfaces gleaming with alien metal, and their weapons charged with energy that could destroy planets. Lyra activated the device, projecting barriers of shimmering energy around the station. The shields rippled and expanded, absorbing the first salvo of weapons fire. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and the station trembled under the impact. Her companions worked alongside her, following her instructions with precision. Humans and aliens alike moved with purpose, guided by her strategies. She directed drones to intercept enemy fighters, manipulated energy flows to strengthen the station's defenses, and projected illusions to confuse the attackers. The device responded to her intent, amplifying her commands and adapting to the threats in real time. As the battle raged on, Lyra realized that the coalition had underestimated her. They had assumed that a single human with a strange device would be easy to overpower. But humans were unpredictable, capable of seeing solutions where others saw only obstacles. Lyra exploited every weakness in their formations, anticipating their moves and turning their strengths against them. In the chaos, she noticed a smaller vessel attempting to breach the station's core. Its intent was clear: to reach the central chamber where the network nodes were concentrated. Lyra knew that if it succeeded, the coalition could take control of the entire system. Without hesitation, she focused her mind and the device, extending an energy field that reached beyond the station itself. The field engulfed the vessel, immobilizing it and forcing it to retreat. The crew inside scrambled, bewildered by the humans' power. The coalition regrouped, launching a coordinated strike with multiple ships targeting different points of the station. Lyra felt the strain of controlling the device, the effort of maintaining barriers and manipulating energy simultaneously. Sweat beaded on her forehead and her muscles ached, but she refused to falter. She reminded herself of Kale's words about generosity and human spirit, the belief that even one person could make a difference. She drew strength from the memory, letting it guide her actions. As the battle reached its peak, Lyra realized that victory would not come from defense alone. She had to act decisively to strike at the heart of the coalition's operation. She activated a function of the device she had never used before, one that allowed her to interface with the alien network directly. Holographic symbols filled the station, projecting a map of the coalition's fleet and their energy sources. She could see the connections, the flows of power, and the vulnerabilities hidden within their formations. With careful precision, she directed the device to manipulate the energy nodes, sending pulses through the network that disrupted the coalition's communications and weapon systems. Ships faltered, energy shields collapsed, and confusion spread through their ranks. Lyra's companions moved swiftly, exploiting the chaos to neutralize key targets. Humans and aliens alike fought with determination, inspired by Lyra's courage and strategy. The coalition, realizing they were losing control, launched a final desperate attack on the station. Lyra felt the device hum with intensity, its power matching the danger around her. She extended her consciousness, focusing not just on defense but on the intention behind the network. The alien machines responded, amplifying her commands and creating a synchronized response across multiple systems. Energy flows converged, forming barriers and counterattacks that repelled the invaders. Amid the chaos, Lyra noticed a young alien child trapped near one of the station's damaged sections. Without hesitation, she directed a protective energy field around the child and moved swiftly to extract them. The companions she had trained and inspired helped evacuate the vulnerable, ensuring that no innocent life was lost. Lyra realized that her power was meaningful not just for defeating enemies, but for protecting those who could not defend themselves. As the final wave of the coalition retreated, Lyra allowed herself a moment to breathe. The station was battered but intact. The network remained secure and her companions had survived. The victory was not achieved through force alone, but through ingenuity, strategy, and the unwavering courage of a human who had once had nothing. In the aftermath, Lyra walked among her companions, offering guidance and encouragement. She repaired damaged systems, shared knowledge of the network, and taught them how to harness its energy for protection and growth. The alien coalition would return, she knew, but now they had learned to respect the unpredictability and resourcefulness of humans. Lyra had shown that strength was not measured by size or firepower alone, but by intelligence, courage, and compassion. She reflected on how far she had come. Once a girl scavenging for scraps in a desolate colony, she had grown into a leader, a strategist, and a protector. Her journey had been shaped by the generosity of Kale, the stranger who had given her the device when she had nothing. That simple act had set in motion a series of events that had transformed not only her life, but the fate of countless others. Lyra knew that her destiny was not yet complete. The network of alien devices held secrets she had only begun to understand. Entire civilizations could benefit from its knowledge and power, but it required a steward with wisdom and integrity. She accepted that responsibility, understanding that the true test of humanity was not just survival or victory, but the choices made in moments of power. She sent messages to distant worlds, offering guidance and forging alliances with those willing to embrace cooperation over conquest. Humans and aliens alike responded, forming a coalition united not by fear or domination, but by mutual respect and shared goals. Lyra became a symbol of what humans could achieve: resilience, intelligence, and the ability to inspire trust and loyalty. Through it all, Lyra never forgot her origins. She remembered the cold streets of the mining colony, the hunger, the fear, and the loneliness. Those experiences had shaped her, teaching her the value of empathy, the importance of quick thinking, and the strength of determination. They had prepared her for the challenges she faced and would face in the future. One quiet evening, as she stood on the observation deck of the station, watching the stars stretch endlessly across the sky, Lyra reflected on the journey. She had nothing when she first found the device, and yet now she held a power that could influence worlds. The gift of human generosity, the belief that one person could make a difference, had altered her destiny. She understood that her story was part of a larger narrative, one in which humans could rise to meet challenges that seemed insurmountable, not through domination, but through courage, ingenuity, and compassion. The device pulsed softly in her hand, a reminder of the responsibility she carried. She touched it gently, feeling the warmth and energy, and knew that she was ready for whatever lay ahead. There would be new threats, new challenges, and new choices to make. But Lyra was no longer afraid. She had learned to trust herself, to trust the device, and to trust the human spirit that had guided her from nothing to something extraordinary. As the stars glittered above, Lyra whispered a promise to herself and to the universe. She would protect the network, she would defend those who could not defend themselves, and she would show that humans, though small and fragile in the vast cosmos, could achieve greatness through wisdom, courage, and compassion. In the quiet that followed, she felt a connection to all the worlds the network touched. She understood that her journey was far from over, that her choices would continue to shape the fate of civilizations. And yet, for the first time, she felt a deep sense of peace. She had begun with nothing, and now she held the power to inspire, to protect, and to change destinies. Lyra looked toward the horizon, where the first light of distant suns began to shimmer. She knew that humans had always been underestimated, that others often thought them weak, fragile, or insignificant. But she also knew the truth. Humans had a resilience, an ingenuity, and a spirit that could outmatch even the most formidable foes. That truth had been proven again and again through her journey, through her courage, and through the choices she had made. With the device in her hands, allies at her side, and the lessons of generosity and humanity in her heart, Lyra stepped forward into the future. She was no longer a girl with nothing. She was a human who had harnessed knowledge, power, and spirit to shape her destiny and protect the destiny of countless others. The universe stretched endlessly before her, full of challenges and opportunities, and she was ready to meet them all. The stars above shone like beacons, and the pulse of the device in her hand resonated with the promise of what humans could achieve. Lyra smiled, feeling the weight of the journey behind her and the infinite possibilities ahead. She had learned that even the smallest act of kindness, a meal shared, a gift given without expectation, could ripple through time and space, altering destinies in ways unimaginable. And so, with nothing to her name but courage, ingenuity, and the memory of generosity, Lyra embraced her place in the universe. She was ready to lead, to protect, and to show that humans, no matter how insignificant they might seem to others, could shape the cosmos through determination, compassion, and the indomitable strength of their spirit. The journey was only beginning, but Lyra had already proven that the human heart, when combined with intelligence and courage, could overcome any obstacle. The galaxy had taken notice, and those who had underestimated humanity would soon learn that even those with nothing could rise to greatness, changing the course of history and leaving a legacy that would echo across the stars.